that Sting, 64 years old, is wrestling what he is saying his last match this week at AEW Revolution in the Greensboro Coliseum, a very famous arena for many different reasons, specifically, obviously, in the wrestling world.
Flair country. Flair country.
Yeah, and Sting and Flair wrestled to a 45-minute time limit draw at Clash of the Champions 1 at the Greensboro Coliseum. But 64 years old Sting is going out on his own terms this Sunday at AEW Revolution. So before we go into the Revolution card itself, I want to talk about Sting a little bit and his career, because he's one of the only ones that has and probably ever will really have wrestled in every one of the companies. We're talking NWA, WCW, WWE, TNA Impact, AEW, right? I mean, it's hard to live long enough and to have a career long enough to span all of those things. We never got to see the elusive Sting versus Undertaker match at a WrestleMania. There was the rumors that he was going to sign with WWE in 2011. They did some vignettes that, to many accounts, looked like he was going to sign with the company to hint towards a WrestleMania match at WrestleMania 27, I believe, between Sting and Undertaker. Ended up not happening. He re-signed with TNA. Crazy to think he was with TNA for 11 years. So, I mean, like,
that's crazy.
Over a dozen years with almost 15 years or so with WCW, NWA, 11 with TNA, 4 now with like AEW, a few with the WWE, and obviously, not just that Undertaker Sting thing not working out, but in general his WWE time. It's really a shame because he put off signing with the WWE for so long, and to sign with the WWE, and then he had the match with Seth Rollins, which put him essentially out of action for good in the WWE world. And what we thought might have been leaning towards either maybe even him holding the belt or him going against The Undertaker at future WrestleManias. But what are some Sting moments? It doesn't have to be necessarily matches, but what are some Sting moments that stick out to you?
I mean, let's be honest. The 1 year that comes to mind, and I'm younger than you, so, and I don't think you would remember this year very well either. But the year 1992 was, I would say, Sting's arguably his best year as a wrestler. I'm just looking at some great matches here. I'm looking,
that's where he took on Cactus Jack in a pretty good match, right?
I mean, I'm just going to break it down for you. He had a hell of a match at Starrcade 92 with Vader, and then let's see. 91 he also had 91, 92. So Super Bowl 1 against the Steiner brothers where he was with Lex Luger. That was a good match. Let's see. Yeah, Sting, Cactus Jack, Beach Blast 92. And then a lot of people would argue, and I'd have to go back and watch it because I haven't watched it in a long time. Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance at Wrestle War 92. People would say that is probably one of the best matches of his career. For me, because it sticks in my mind because of the wars. In 1999, him and Diamond Dallas Page were coming up on 25 years I believe it was on a Nitro. So that was, and I believe it was the WCW Championship match almost 25 years ago. That was a great match. I think that they had, both him and DDP had the crowd in the palm of their hand. It was one of those really good matches that it was right before, I would say it was on the back end of the good part of the Monday Night Wars. Like, I know obviously WCW lost the wars because we're in the WWE era at this point, and Vince McMahon bought WCW and everything, as we all know. But 99 was still a decent year. They still had some quality matches, and that match to me on a Nitro of all things, not a pay-per-view or a premium live event, but on a Nitro was, I think, for me, that was one of my favorite matches. And you mentioned TNA. I believe there was a good match about 15 years ago with somebody we're familiar with in WWE, AJ Styles. I believe he had a really good match back then as well. I'm just trying to go back to my memories and just remembering, different Sting matches. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to give you a fun factoid that a lot of people probably don't know about Sting, a.k.a. Steve Borden. He was actually, he guest starred in one of my favorite TV shows as a kid, Walker, Texas Ranger. He was actually in a biker gang. He was the leader of the biker gang. And I just remember that well because he was still at WCW at the time that happened. So he was doing a crossover with Chuck Norris and the crew from Walker, Texas Ranger, back in the early, I think it was late 99, early 2000. So I remember that well because, people are like, they're like, I don't see Sting on here because he went by his name, his real name, Steve Borden. So people were confused. I'm like, I'm telling you that's Sting because people are so used to the face paint and everything, the Crow Sting, the Surfer Sting. I have to ask you this then. Speaking of the Crow Sting versus the Surfer Sting, what is your favorite? I like the Crow Sting. That's my favorite. What's your favorite?
I think, and the reason I brought the question for you, like favorite moments, right? So I think my favorite moment with Sting is him for like a year during the Nitro era, 96, 97 time, just being up in the rafters, the Crow Sting, not saying a word, like doing that for like a good solid year before finally coming down and like indicating if he was going to join the NWO, like whose side is he on? Obviously there's the famous meme and GIF out there, I think, where he takes off the plastic Sting mask and has the Sting paint. Like it's trying to like, is he turncoat? Oh no, he's taking it off. No, he's still him underneath. Like, I think it's kind of funny because two parts of Sting are literally more, I want to say more synonymous, but synonymous with other people. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin, everything about him is Stone Cold Steve Austin. All right? The Rock, everything about him is The Rock. But Sting shares his name in wrestling with someone who was equally like as famous. There always has to be Sting the musician, Sting the wrestler. And then we talk about the Crow Sting. Well, clearly that came from inspiration from the movie The Crow, right? So when you see the movie The Crow, you instantly think of Sting, or if you see Sting, you instantly think of The Crow. So Sting is most famous for like two things. It would be like, it'd be like if in NASCAR his name was Dale Earnhardt and or maybe his name was Michael Jordan in NASCAR and he drove a car that was very similar to like the Dukes of Hazzard. So you're like, he drives a Dukes of Hazzard car and his name's Michael Jordan. Like I think of the basketball player and I think of Dukes of Hazzard when I think those things. So he's got two things about him that are like I said, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, those people are kind of their own thing, 100%. Their name's their own thing. I mean, Steve Austin, I guess you could say, shares it with the $1 Million Man, but his overall persona, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, right? Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I don't think many people have to differentiate between him and Don Morocco, who was the original Rock, because he never took off. But to be Sting and be like, oh, I'm going to go see Sting this weekend, and be like, the wrestler, not the musician, and then you show a picture, and you're like, yeah, that's based on the movie. But no, he's not in the movie. That's a different character. Like, that has nothing to do with him, kind of thing. Yeah. But that whole that version of Sting, I do think something to stick out with me when it comes to Sting is somebody who's currently in AEW now, right? His match against Jeff Hardy in TNA Impact, and where Jeff Hardy came to the ring very inebriated, where Sting had to was pretty upset. Made you wonder how long Sting's days in TNA were after having to deal with something ridiculous like Jeff Hardy coming out in a main event match of a pay-per-view and not being able to perform. And Sting obviously like clearly on camera being upset and, being like, fans are chanting bullshit. And he said, I couldn't agree more, or I agree, that kind of thing to the crowd.
Because it wasn't his fault. Jeff had his,
that's a Jeff thing. But I mean, Sting was there. That's why,
because and that's the thing about Sting. He's a constant professional. He's one of those guys that he wants to put on a great show for the fans. And you know what? Let me tell you this: at 64 years old, it was still cool seeing him on Dynamite, the Go Home Dynamite before the big Revolution pay-per-view, coming from the rafters. Like, that made me go, that was like a blast. That was a blast from the past. And you know what, also, like, another time that, a lot of people, maybe didn't know Sting, but they watched the movie Ready to Rumble with David Arquette. And Sting was in that as well because it was featured, WCW Nitro and all that. So seeing Sting in there as well, and the Crow Sting at that point, he's crossed over in different ways, whether it's television, movie, movies, wrestling itself. Like he's been in pretty much every promotion that you can mention. The only place I don't think off the top of my head he has been in, which maybe you'll correct me because you might know this, Ring of Honor. I don't think he's ever been in Ring of Honor.
I don't know. I don't think he had any time in Ring of Honor. Because again, that's always been kind of like an indie promotion, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of really like sign him for any sort of deal. And technically he was never in the WWF because when he did show up, he was in WWE. He was also, he's never been, I think he's been in some indie feds in the sense of like the ones that are still national, like he was in like World Wrestling All-Stars or something, in like the early 2000s before TNA started. But yeah, he was never like really on the indie scene at all in that sense. Like he was always with a company. He was always signed to a company. He was never just like Cody Rhodes essentially was doing, or kind of floating around for a little bit and wrestling here and there and everywhere. He never really did anything like that other than maybe in the beginning of his career when he was starting out with the Continental Wrestling Alliance. I believe it was.
I was gonna say, didn't he wrestle originally? Oh goodness, I think it was.
He teamed up.
It was All California or something like that.
Yeah, so you forget that he started his career in 1985 with the Continental Wrestling Association, and he was teamed up with Jim Hellwig, Mr. Ultimate Warrior himself. They were the name of their tag team, the Blade Runners. There it is. It was eluding me for a second, but yes. You have that, right? Starting things out with the Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, like in WCW, my favorite. So the shirt, I'll be wearing to AEW Revolution this weekend is him and RoboCop teaming up back in 1991 at Capital Combat, I believe. Great shirt, I think. He's part of some of those interesting moments in the world of wrestling. Like a lot of people say one of his major moments that we'll always remember him for is being the one that says he is going to shock the world. None other than the Shock Master. That's him saying it when the Shock Master obviously makes his very historic debut in WCW. But I have to say, obviously, the Crow Sting. And don't forget, he had the Wolfpack, the red Crow Sting as well. Was a thing. He did remember he did the Joker Sting as well during the Batman in the TNA Impact days with the Joker smile on his face. So he's had a couple different variations of the costume.
He was the franchise in WCW. Like he was their guy. Like obviously during the wars before Hulk Hogan, the whole NWO, like Sting was one of the main featured guys. And the amount of respect that for Sting, and of course the guy he's going to be going to the ring with besides Darby Allin, Ric Flair is going to be alongside. They had some great matches over the years in WCW, and they also were the last show. They were the last match in WCW on the last show, so they were the ones that finished it off for WCW. Before WWE, it was incorporated into the WWE family, so to speak. So, Sting to me is he's one of those guys that he was so famous outside of WWE where like everyone's like, oh, you got to go to WWE to become a star. He never had to. Like he was a star without it. And he's going to be it's going to be so much fun to watch it this weekend. I know you're going to be there live. And I'll be watching it. Like I have been watching more AEW in recent weeks because I want to see how they're going to build up this whole tag team match. How are they going to do things with Sting? And I think they've done a pretty decent job with it. Obviously, I feel like Sting's had a lot of control. I believe I bet you Tony Khan's let him kind of take the reins and say, hey, I'll let you work with Darby and the Bucks, and or as they go by, what is it, Matthew now? I'm like, come on, like what are we doing with that? But the Young Bucks, and to me, I'm looking forward to seeing how this finishes out. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. The arena's going to be crazy good. It's going to be probably their highest grossing pay-per-view in history. I would bank on that. I feel like a lot of people that maybe don't watch AEW regularly, or people that are just old school fans of Sting, probably heard, hey, Sting's wrestling one more match. There's going to be some extra buys. I wouldn't be surprised if this Revolution pay-per-view is has the highest buy rate of any AEW show to date.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. It's interesting. It's on Sunday, not Saturday, because I know they do a lot of pay-per-views on Saturday. AEW kind of goes back and forth with that. Well, WWE seems to be Saturday only now, but it's from the Greensboro Coliseum, which is an interesting venue. I know, Brandon, you're a big college basketball fan, so
Yeah.
it's a very important arena when it comes to college athletics. I think there's the ACC Hall of Champions on site there.
ECC
But
tournaments played there. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I think it's historically played there. I think it goes around different places nowadays. But yes, most of the ACC tournaments, I think a lot of the historic ones for sure, have been at the Greensboro Coliseum. It's a unique venue because it's such a big venue for a small city. It's a city that's the size, not one of the bigger ones in North Carolina. It's not Charlotte. It's not even Raleigh. It's the size of probably like locally where we're recording this in Syracuse, New York. It's probably, more of a Syracuse-sized city. They got a single A baseball team there. But this arena, at capacity for like wrestling events can hold, 21 plus thousand, which would put it, as like up there with one of, if not the biggest arenas in the NBA. So it's a huge arena, and doing some wrestling attendance figures, it seems like this is going to be the largest attended wrestling pay-per-view at this place since the 1999 King of the Ring. So both Unforgiven, In Your House 98, and in the 1999 King of the Ring drew over 20,000. But crazy enough, all the Starcades that were there, which were 83, 84, 85, 86, as well as 1990 Wrestle War, drew under 16,000 for all those shows. They drew around 15 each. And then the 2001 Survivor Series was there, where obviously it was, the battle of WCW versus the Alliance versus Team WWF. But, as excited as I was as a kid and needing to watch that pay-per-view, in the scheme of wrestling, it drew like 12,000 people. So it's going to be one of the larger wrestling crowds there. They've already sold around 16,400, I believe. As of right now, 16,400 for the event. So it'll definitely be, last time AEW was there, I think they said they drew like 5,000 for a Collision taping. So it's going to be a much bigger crowd than that. So it's a huge arena. Obviously, the significance, you know what I mean? Talking about it held the Clash of the Champions that Sting and Ric Flair wrestled in at that arena. So it's a big important arena. So before we get into the whole card, I think we'll stick with our predictions for the Sting match at the end. But let's build this card up from top to bottom right here. We got a new match that was added this week, the All-Star Scramble, which was supposed to be like some Meat Mountain match originally, but due to the potential injuries or something to do with Brian Cage and Powerhouse Hobbs and Lance Archer, they decided to do this All-Star Scramble instead. And as of right now, I don't actually see a match on a pre-show. 9 matches on the main card as of now. But you got Jericho, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, Lance Archer, Hook, Brian Cage, Magnus, and Dante Martin in this match, and the winner will receive a future AEW World Championship shot. Chris Jericho showed up on Dynamite this week as the Lionheart, so maybe a little bit.
It was a nice throwback. That was a nice throwback. Hearing music, the whole get up. I thought it was great, and he also, it was cool because he got to wrestle one of his favorite luchadors' sons, and that's how long Chris has been in the business. He's wrestling sons now. That's just how it goes. That's how long he's been in the business, and it was a good match. So out of those competitors, I think for me, I go with Wardlow. I think Wardlow's the guy that gets I think he's going to win that match. I just feel like I don't think Chris Jericho's going to win. I feel like at this point he's not going to be in the title picture. I feel like he's just going to be in different aspects, being entertaining as he always is. I think he's letting things. I think he'll be a part of matches like this, obviously going forward. But I don't think he's going to win those matches really going forward because they need to start bringing up some other stars, not established stars. And I think Wardlow is due for a title shot down the line. So I'll go with Wardlow. Who are you going in this match?
I don't necessarily believe that anybody who wins this has to go for a title shot right away. But hey, and it's weird going over these pay-per-views because there's a lot more than the WWF or WWE ones, right? So I'm gonna go with Hook. People have been wondering what they're doing with him. His popularity was like skyrocketing for quite a bit. So I'm gonna go Hook. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win the belt. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to main event the pay-per-view. But, hey, give it to Hook. I think, that's probably – and I feel like that's probably one of the ones that fans are going to get behind, right? So that's my pick for that All-Star Scramble match. I don't necessarily know the rules per se for the All-Star Scramble match. If it's like one pinfall to a finish, if it's going to be like time limited.
I mean, my understanding, and I'm reading some of the rules here. It's essentially 2 wrestlers start the match, and every 5 minutes another wrestler enters until all 5 are. So in this case, until all combatants are in the match. I don't know how that. I really don't know. That's just how that's what I was reading on.
And then one pinfall to a finish here.
Let's see. It says there's a predetermined limit. Each time a wrestler scores a pinfall, he becomes. Well, that doesn't make sense because
so then it's like the hardcore scramble they had in WrestleMania 2000, where like when all 5 are in the ring, then the clock starts, and then who's ever got the most recent pinfall at 0 is your winner, right? So you pinfall, you're the essential winner of the match, but you got to kill the clock, right? So who's ever got the most recent pinfall when the clock hits 0 is the winner, right? We saw that WrestleMania 2000 in the hardcore scramble, and then Hardcore Holly, I think, got the pinfall with 1 second left or something, and he's the winner. Time runs out. So that seems to be what the deal is. So the clock will start once all competitors have entered or something. But you said they're coming in 2 at they start with 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the rules because I don't know. I don't think they explained it on Dynamite. I didn't watch it.
Well, the good news is this isn't close to one of the main event matches, so it doesn't matter.
No, but still, I don't think they mentioned it on Dynamite. I did watch Dynamite this week.
They just announced the match for like the first time this week. I mean, it was originally supposed to be like Meat Madness or something.
I guess we'll find out like everybody else does, at the pay-per-view. I'm sure they'll put a graphic up about how this is gonna, and then you'll hear like Excalibur explain it or something. So we'll find out when the show happens.
Blackpool Combat Club versus FTR, in which would be a pretty good tag team match. We saw kind of like a preview of it on Dynamite opening the show with those guys. But yeah, that should be a pretty good tag team match. Nothing on the line, no number 1 contenderships, just 2 good tag teams, I guess. People pay like myself to go see AEW, and AEW wants to, unlike WWE, put everybody on the card, right? So this is just one of those situations.
Who you got? Who you taking?
I'm going to go with FTR. I'm going to go FTR in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like FTR is gonna win. It'll be a good match. I just hope, which probably won't happen, but it'd be nice if Jon Moxley doesn't get bloody for a pay-per-view. So that'd be nice.
Don't bank on that one.
Yeah.
Singles match. We're not getting another Edge and Christian as we might have thought. We're getting Christian versus Daniel Garcia for the TNT Championship. Do we see Edge at all involved in this match? And who's leaving with the TNT belt?
I think it's too early for Christian Cage to drop the belt, considering what his the way they're building his story and his gimmick and everything. So I think Daniel Garcia is very deserving of this championship. I just think it's the wrong time for him. I feel like he's going to be a future TNT champion or a future heavyweight champion. I feel like Daniel Garcia is really good, but I don't think it's going to be this at this point. I feel like Christian Cage is going to win via some sort of dirty tricks, whatnot. I don't think he wins it clean. I feel like Daniel Garcia is going to look like he's going to win the match, and then Christian Cage will have either kill switch or obviously Mother Wayne or even Nick Wayne, one of them, at ringside to do some dirty deeds for him and help him defeat Daniel Garcia. So Daniel Garcia is good. I just don't think he's going to be winning this match.
Do you see any Edge involvement?
I don't see it. I think Edge is out of the picture at this point for now.
All right, so we got the debut in AEW of Will Ospreay. A lot of people were hoping he was going to show up to WWE. Where was his future going to lie? Well, he's in AEW, and he's making his in-ring debut. We saw him on Dynamite, but he's making his in-ring debut this upcoming Sunday at AEW Revolution versus Kanosuke Takahashi. Or I'm going to say that really wrong.
Takashita.
Takashita. We'll stick with the last name there.
That's not hard. Kanosuke.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's one of those, like, here's the thing. I'm familiar with all of these guys from New Japan and stuff, and I'm familiar with that they all have, like, different takes on their name. You know what I mean? Takahashi, that kind of, Suzuki, what have you, right? But it's just obviously, takes some repetition. I'm not one of those Mark Wrestling fans who's just got every New Japan guy name rolling off my tongue. I'm familiar with these guys, and I imagine this is going to be a New Japan classic style match.
It's going to be a good match amongst the Don Callis family members. That was some interesting dynamic. with the handshakes and then pulling each other back in type of thing. I'm looking forward to this match. I mean, there's nothing on the line. It's just two really good wrestlers that are just going to put on a show. This is what, like you said, this is what AEW does. They're just going to put some matches together with some two really good combatants, and just let them throw bombs and throw together a great match. It'll be fun. I'm curious to see who's going to win. I think it'll be Will Ospreay. I feel like that's the obvious choice because why would you hype him up as this, the newest member of the Elite family if he is not going to win? So it'll be a good match, but I think Ospreay pulls out the dub.
Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson for the Continental Crown Championship, which is the AEW Continental Championship, the Ring of Honor World Championship, and the New Japan Wrestling Strong Openweight Championship. So I believe it's just for – is it for all three? I believe it's for all three.
Yeah, I think it is three.
So Bryan Danielson, essentially, if he wins this, hey, you can expect to see him at Supercard of Honor in Philadelphia, WrestleMania weekend as the ROH World Champion. And if Danielson loses, he's got to shake Eddie Kingston's hand in defeat. Do we see a new Continental Crown, 3-belt champion in Bryan Danielson, or is Eddie Kingston keeping all the belts with him?
I think Eddie Kingston keeps all the belts.
I do too, just for the fact that all the belts are on the line. It just seems like, it's one way. It's weird to just lose all the belts and win all the belts kind of thing in one single swoop.
Yeah, and I think Danielson's got some other things cooking down the line because from what I've gathered online and just reading different things, I don't think Danielson's career on the in-ring side is going to. I think he's getting close to the finish line. It seems like he is. I think we're gonna have a nice run, a good run left in him. But I feel like I don't think he wants to be in the ring anymore. I just feel like.
In comparison of Sting, he has 22 years left in his career.
No, that's valid. I feel like he's getting close to the finish line. As we've seen before, he's very much a family guy. So I could see him riding off in the sunset. Not at this match, obviously, but I feel like he's got a good run left in him. But I think he's going to be done soon. That's just my thoughts. And in Eddie Kingston, he's on a roll. He's been doing great. I like his work. Matt and Nick Jackson were making fun of him and his dress code stuff. So that was fun. So I mean it'll be a hard hitting match, and I do think Danielson will put on a good show with it. Obviously, no one wrestles Danielson and has a bad match. So Kingston will do a good job, and he'll walk away with all the belts.
Deonna Purrazzo, she makes her pay-per-view debut in AEW. She takes on the timeless Toni Storm, who is the AEW Women's Champion, and the belt is on the line. I'm interested to see Deonna Purrazzo here, right? She's somebody who's been in a few different companies, right? She in the WWE, TNA Impact. I've seen her on the indie scene, and here she is now in AEW. So, curious to see what she brings to the table. I don't necessarily think she's going to leave, as champion, but hey, I mean, look at her resume, right? TNA Knockouts champion, Lucha AAA Worldwide, Ring of Honor Women's Champion, champion in Mexico, WWE. She's only 29 years old and she's been around. So curious to see what she can bring. And Toni Storm, I mean, I really like the gimmick she's been doing. I feel like the AEW women's division as a whole is obviously one of the weaker ones in the wrestling world. But, I do like what these guys have been doing. It makes me, though, miss like the Jade Cargill kind of stuff, in AEW. But I'm interested to see it. I don't think Deonna Purrazzo's winning. I think Toni Storm. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. Deonna Purrazzo, I'm picking her. That AEW likes to kind of do those feel good things.
Well, here's the thing. I think it'll be. I still think Timeless Tony's gonna keep the belt. I think like you mentioned, the gimmick's great. I think it's well done. I think they're doing a great job with it. And I feel like, and I know it's a recent signing. We didn't mention this last week, but in the last couple weeks, AEW signed a very big talent on the creative side, Jen Pepperman, who. I was listening to Eric Bischoff's podcast, and he has glowing reviews of her, in the business. She's got a lot of awards for being a great writer, whether it's in the wrestling business or I believe soaps. So she's a good writer, but from my understanding, she also she's also the writer for Mercedes Moné, which obviously was Sasha Banks in WWE. So I feel like we're going to see some interesting stuff with Mercedes Moné. But I do think it'll be good to see what Jen does in this, how she creates some magic in this match, because Toni Storm, Deonna Purrazzo, two great combatants. It's going to be a great match. But I do think Timeless Toni, I feel like she wins dirty. I just have that feeling. I do feel like. I feel like Mariah May is going to help her win the match. So because she's going to be at ringside. So I think Deonna Purrazzo is going to be. I think it's going to be close. I feel like she's going to be at a point where she win. Like you feel like she's winning the match, and then Timeless Toni will somehow, there'll be some dirty deeds, and she'll be the victor. But it's going to be a good match.
So we got another championship match, International Championship, Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong as well. He's got the old Ring of Honor boys there, creating that little clique, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong. You see the championship changing hands here? I don't.
I would love to see it, but Orange Cassidy is Tony Khan's boy. He goes to all the soccer games across the pond, so he's one of Tony Khan's boys. I don't see this happening, but honestly, I'd like to see it happen. I like Roderick Strong. I'm going to go with Roddy on this one.
Going with the world title on the line in what will be a triple threat match. It was in question on Dynamite. Hangman Adam Page essentially swerved us by saying he was unable to compete and then attacked Swerve Strickland with his crutch. Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland, and the champion Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe's first pay-per-view defense of the belt since he won it back at AEW World's End in New York. Who do you think's winning the belt? What do you think's happening here? And I guess I'll just throw this out here now before we do this, because I was going to do this for the whole pay-per-view in general. Don't need to take away from the Sting part of this, but people are kind of forgetting. They kind of have gone a little lazy when it comes to this. Maybe I'm reading into that. But we said it at the Royal Rumble. If he wasn't there, he's not coming. So my question is MJF coming back, and is he coming back on Sunday?
No, he's not coming back on Sunday. I'll put that out there now. He ain't coming back. I'm just going to tell you this right now. There isn't going to be any title changes in this match. Samoa Joe, you just mentioned it. He's still early in his reign. I think he's going to have a pretty good size length for his reign. I feel like Samoa Joe is going to keep the title. Who would I like to see win it? I'd like to see some fresh blood. I think Swerve Strickland's doing a hell of a job now.
Yeah, Swerve Strickland's pretty popular right now.
He's on a roll, but I don't think they're going to take the belt off Samoa that early. I feel like Samoa Joe. I feel like he's the kind of guy you can build some even bigger and better matches down the line. I feel like there's going to be some dirty deeds in this match as well, where I do feel like Swerve and Hangman feel like they got so to speak, and I feel like I feel like what's going to happen is Swerve and Page are going to do something to each other, and then Samoa Joe is just going to capitalize and win the match, and then we're going to see some more shenanigans between Swerve and Hangman, and then Samoa Joe will probably go, he'll face somebody else, maybe a Wardlow at the next pay-per-view.
So we move on to what we believe will be the main event, right? The main event match. Sting teaming up with Darby Allin in a tornado tag team match. That means everybody can be involved all at the same time. So we don't necessarily have to have Sting on the outside the whole time. You can get right in the action. Against the Young Bucks, it's for the tag team championships. Ric Flair is apparently going to be at the side of Sting and Darby Allin. Darby Allin is more than half. He's only 31, half of Sting's age. So, two Darby Allins plus 2 years to equal Sting, who is 64 years old heading into this match. He would be 65 if we waited until the end of the month for this match. So he's going to be 17 days shy at match start of 65 years old.
God bless
so
him.
my question is, and it's going to be essentially the title of this video when we put it out. So the question is, win or lose? Sting going out as a winner? Is he going to go out as a tag champ and then walk off into the sunset? Or does he do what a lot wish that time-honored tradition in wrestling is, and let's go out on his back?
I think he goes out on his back. I think he does. I feel like that Sting is, that's the, you just mentioned it. It's like the way you normally do it when you're laying your boots in the ring, so to speak. I feel like that time honored tradition of doing that. I feel like Sting will honor that. He's been a consummate professional. He's done everything the right way. He's been a hell of a wrestler for our entire lives. So I think he does that. I feel like he does a great job and takes the 1, 2, 3. I do feel like the Bucks. I'm not calling them young Bucks anymore because they're not young. The guys have been in the business a long time. I mean, they're young compared to Sting, but the Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas, the EVPs, are going to they're going to win. I think they're taking the titles off of Darby and Sting, and then Sting can ride off into the sunset. And then maybe we'll see somebody. Maybe we'll see Darby Allin do something. Maybe if Orange Cassidy wins that match, maybe he does something in that era. Or
what do we see with Flair here? Does Flair double cross Sting here?
I hope not. I'm going to say no. I feel like he's going to. I feel like he might try to help Sting and Darby, but I feel like something's going to happen where the Bucks go after him, and then he's on his back, and then maybe at the end of the match where Sting is doing his thing, maybe Rick does something where it's like they get in the ring together really quick, and then they do a hug, and then Rick does the great thing and then gets out of the ring. Sting's by himself like he deserves to be. Let the fans soak it all in, give a big ovation, and then that's it. He waves. He kind of waves to the crowd, and then that's it. And then his career's done.
Yeah, Sting's gonna go out here at the Greensboro Coliseum. It's kind of strange. I'm looking at it right now. The announced crowd. Again, you never know what's true and stuff, but the announced crowd at the Greensboro Coliseum when he went with a 45-minute draw against Ric Flair, 6,000. So he's going to go out in essentially triple that crowd.
Good.
Good for him to go out in size of that crowd. Should be a good pay-per-view Sunday night, 8 o'clock. Not leading into we're so used to. I think like World's End was like right before a holiday. I think it was like New Year's Eve or right before New Year's Eve, and that was also, I believe, on a Saturday. It's part of the reason I think I didn't go. I had another obligation of work that night, or I would have went down to New York and I would have went to that. But it was on a Saturday and conflicted with what I was doing. If it was on New Year's Eve itself on a Sunday, I would have probably attended that. So my first AEW pay-per-view, and it's weird because to do things right, I would have. There's a few like the AEW's World End, right? I would have attended that without the obligation. And then last year's AEW New Japan Forbidden Door, which a lot are saying was last year's best AEW pay-per-view, coincided with the time that I tried and did go to London, England with the attempt to be around Money in the Bank weekend, when if I was to probably do it all over again, I would probably have definitely gone to a few AEW pay-per-views because I would have skipped the London trip to more or less go around the All-In pay-per-view in Wembley, where it would have been much easier and cheaper to get tickets, and then I would have been free and open to go to AEW Forbidden Door in Toronto. So boom, that one switch would have changed it from me going to 0 AEW pay-per-views to this being now my third AEW pay-per-view, at least. But this will be the first AEW pay-per-view, and it's good. It's got a good crowd. It's going to feel like what WCW did in the early days, in that sense. And, a lot of talk about AEW and their attendance in Huntsville, Alabama. The attendance maybe wasn't so great, just in general, but shows that it's definitely a viable product. And when it comes to the AEW world and the attendance and all that stuff, that's a topic for another time. Just excited to see Sting, his last match, we believe, right?
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
We believe his last match, because that's what you have to say in the world of wrestling, this Sunday.